The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Marcus Rivera scrubbed the same plate for the third time, his calloused hands trembling not from the scalding water, but from the pink slip burning in his back pocket. In 6 hours, when his shift ended, he'd have to walk home to his 8-year-old daughter Sophia and tell her they might lose their tiny apartment. The weight of that conversation pressed against his chest like a stone, threatening to crack the last fragile piece of hope he'd been carrying since his wife Maria died 3 years ago. Marcus had never imagined his life would come to this. Once an aerospace engineer with dreams as vast as the sky, he'd watched everything crumble when Maria's medical bills consumed their savings, their house, and eventually, their future. Now, at 34, he stood in the basement kitchen of Romano's fine dining, invisible to the world above, washing dishes for people who earned more in a night than he made in a month. Rivera, Chef Thompson's voice cut through the kitchen noise like a cleaver. Table 12 sent back the salmon. Apparently, there's a water spot on the plate. Marcus nodded silently, taking the pristine plate that looked identical to every other plate he'd washed that evening. He'd learned not to defend himself, not to explain that he'd polished it twice already. Words were a luxury he couldn't afford, and not when Sophia needed school supplies. Not when rent was due in 5 days. The dinner rush continued its relentless pace. Servers swept past him like ghosts, their arms laden with elegant dishes destined for tables where conversations flowed as freely as $100 wine. Marcus caught fragments of their lives through the service window: mergers and acquisitions, vacation homes in the Hamptons, complaints about yacht maintenance. A different universe, separated by nothing more than a thin wall and an ocean of circumstance. At 9:30 p.m., an elderly man in an expensive but worn suit shuffled into the kitchen through the delivery entrance. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if each step required careful consideration. His silver hair was perfectly combed, but his eyes held a weariness that money couldn't cure. "Excuse me," the man said, approaching Marcus's station. "I'm looking for the manager. My granddaughter is getting married next month, and I wanted to discuss catering options." "Oh, sir, you'll want to go upstairs to the main dining room," Marcus replied, setting down his dish towel. "But it's pretty late here. They might be closing soon." "Here, let me walk you up." The old man smiled, genuine warmth creeping into his tired features. "That's very kind of you. I'm Harold, by the way." "Harold Whitmore." "Marcus Rivera," he replied, wiping his wet hands on his apron before extending one. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Whitmore." As they climbed the narrow stairs, Harold stumbled slightly. Marcus immediately steadied him, his strong arms supporting the frail man's weight. "You okay, sir?" "Just old bones," Harold chuckled. "Haven't been sleeping well lately. Too much on my mind." They emerged into the elegant dining room, all mahogany and crystal, where the last few customers lingered over dessert and cognac. The Matilda registered D. Vincent approached with practiced politeness. "I'm sorry, sir, but we're closing in 15 minutes, Vincent announced. "Perhaps you could call tomorrow?" Marcus saw disappointment cloud Harold's features. The old man nodded slowly, accepting defeat with the resignation of someone accustomed to doors closing in his face. "Actually," Marcus interjected, surprising himself, "my shift doesn't end for another hour. If you'd like, I could get you some coffee and we could sit in the back dining room." "I know it's not ideal, but..." He trailed off, suddenly aware of how presumptuous he sounded. Vincent's face flushed. "Rivera, you're a dishwasher. You don't make decisions about her." "It's perfectly fine," Harold interrupted gently. "I'd be grateful for the coffee and the company." For the next 45 minutes, Marcus found himself in the strangest conversation of his life. As he served Harold coffee in the empty back dining room, the old man asked about his family, his dreams, his struggles. Marcus found himself opening up in ways he hadn't since Maria died. "I used to design aircraft components," Marcus admitted, stirring sugar into his own coffee. Loved the precision of it, the way every piece had to work perfectly with every other piece. After Maria got sick, though, he shrugged, leaving the sentence unfinished. "And your daughter?" Harold asked. Marcus's face lit up despite his exhaustion. "Sophia's incredible. 8 years old and already reading at a high school level. She wants to be a doctor. Says she's going to find cures for diseases so other kids don't lose their moms." His voice caught slightly. "She doesn't know I got fired today." Harold leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Fired? Why?" "Budget cuts, they said." "Last hired, first fired." "It's not their fault. A business has been slow." Marcus managed a weak smile. "I'll find something else." "I always do." "What would you do?" Harold asked carefully. "If you could do anything." "If money weren't an issue?" Marcus laughed, but not unkindly. "That's a dangerous question, Mr. Whitmore." "I'd probably go back to school, finish my master's degree, maybe start a foundation to help families dealing with medical bankruptcy." "Nobody should have to choose between saving their spouse and saving their home." Harold nodded thoughtfully. He finished his coffee in silence, then stood slowly. "Marcus, you've given an old man a precious gift tonight, your time and your kindness. I won't forget it." They shook hands again, and Marcus walked Harold to the door. As the old man disappeared into the night, Marcus returned to finish his final hour of work, unaware that his life had just changed forever. 3 weeks later, Marcus was 2 days into a new job at a chain restaurant. A lower pay, longer hours, greasier dishes when a woman in an expensive suit appeared at his station. "Marcus Rivera?" she asked, consulting a tablet. "I'm Jennifer Walsh from Walsh, Goldman Associates. I need to speak with you about the estate of Harold Whitmore." The name meant nothing to Marcus until she explained. Harold Whitmore hadn't just been a lonely old miner. He'd been the billionaire founder of Whitmore Industries, an aerospace and defense contractor. He died peacefully in his sleep 5 days after their conversation, leaving behind a will that had shocked everyone who knew him. "Mr. Whitmore has named you as the new CEO of Whitmore Industries," Jennifer announced. "The transition includes a comprehensive training program, full salary during education, and a trust fund for your daughter's education." Marcus stared at her, dish soap still dripping from his hands. "There has to be some mistake." Jennifer smiled. "There's no mistake. There's also a letter." With trembling fingers, Marcus opened the envelope. Harold's elegant handwriting filled 2 pages, but one paragraph stood out. "In our brief conversation, you showed me something I'd forgotten existed in the corporate world: a genuine compassion and selfless kindness. You saw an old man, not a business opportunity. You gave your time when you had nothing to gain and everything to lose. Those are the qualities this company needs, the qualities I should have prioritized years ago." 6 months later, CEO Marcus Rivera stood in the conference room of Whitmore Industries, announcing the company's new initiative, the Maria Rivera Foundation for Medical Financial Assistance. Sophia, now 9, sat in the back row, beaming with pride at her father. As he looked out at the faces of his employees, people who had initially doubted him but now respected the changes he'd brought to their workplace culture, Marcus thought about that night in the restaurant. He'd been at his lowest point, facing homelessness and despair, yet he'd still found room in his heart for an old man's loneliness. Sometimes, Marcus realized, the most powerful thing you can give someone isn't money or success, so it's simply the recognition that they matter, that they're seen, that they're worthy of kindness. Harold had given him that gift, and now Marcus spent every day trying to pass it forward. In the end, It wasn't about the billions or the corner office. It was about the truth Harold had seen that night, that character isn't revealed in moments of strength, but in moments of struggle. And sometimes, when you're washing dishes in a basement kitchen with a pink slip in your pocket, you're actually preparing for the most important job interview of your life.